I know I can speak for myself that it's a calling, and I cannot not do it. Mm-hmm. Does that work out right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the times I have tried to ignore it, I have become ill. Mm-hmm. Like it just won't let me go. Mm-hmm. And I have to tell myself these stories. I have to illustrate them. And it's my way of making meaning out of my life. And I can tell you the moment I knew something was afoot. I was 7 years old. I was playing in the woods behind our house with my friend Melody Payton. And I found 3 black feathers on the ground, and I found some string. And then with leaves and sticks and the string, I put these feathers on a birch tree and stood back and looked at it, and something moved inside of me. And I knew I had done something important. It was different from just the natural environment. Just the evidence or the work of my hand had made something meaningful for me. Melody liked it too, I gotta say. And then it wasn't until I was in my late 20s and I wanted to take vacation photos, so I took my first photography class. And the minute I saw that you could do more with photography than just document, I knew I had found another vehicle for my voice. So I pursued that for a bunch of years. It got too confining, so I moved into mixed media, and then llamas came on board, and then there was all this fiber, and that led to felt making, and there's been no turning back. But I know if I don't make, if I don't create and honor that, I pay a high price. It really does become like soul destroying. So I've learned to, all right, just like show up, surrender, and then the good stuff can happen. I like to kind of ritualize my space, and before I start to create, that whole process gets my head out of the way, you know, and that's always the way it works. Get the mind to the side, then the good stuff can happen. And then I practice a mindfulness about, all right, I'm going to embark, and I'm going to try really hard to not insist I know what the destiny is before it's finished. So just show up every step of the way. If I'm not throwing away at least 10% of my stuff, I'm not taking enough chances. I'm not being present enough. So if I end up making everything precious, then that too is going to become so restricting. You know, that
and burdensome.
And burdensome, yeah, like who wants to do that? You know, like stay that razor's edge of thinking you know you're in control and perfection, and because it's an illusion. You know, at least for me, it just seems like it's this journey, and I have to show up for it. Even though, you know, there's all these other pulls, you know, that we have in life, like the dishes and gardening and jobs and family. And so even though those things are calling or pulling, sometimes harder, I still have to honor that.
Yeah.
Or I know I'll pay a price.
Not creating just for the sake of creating something, but in sort of what I said earlier about imbuing your work with your, I'm not going to find the right words, but your not your essence, but imbuing your work with your mindfulness
Or
and
your
with
energy.
Your energy.
Like I just shaboreed 3 little T-shirts for my great nephew.
That's you putting you.
Right. That's
yeah.
And I
putting
did it,
your love into
and putting
it.
my love into it, and my time, my energy, for him. Making things for my great niece and nephews is more of it is a protection to putting who I am into it, and surrounding them and keeping them safe.
It's also you're handing down a lineage. You're keeping the ties of the lineage in your family.
Yeah.
It's pretty wonderful.
I think doing a T-shirt for me is almost like mindless, sort of, I know I can do this and get this, and it's easy, and I know he'll like it. I want it to be perfect. I want it to still look nice, but it doesn't take me a lot of thought and concentration. and there's not a lot of forethought. And doing something like hunting the Amazon moon, it was more, I was in a place, I was in the Amazon, and meeting the indigenous people and the culture and how gorgeous and beautiful it was, and how happy they were, and the nature, and just the amazing water. The river was just amazing. And we were there in the full moon. So it was just like so spectacular. So I was like taking that all in, and then sitting and designing that, and knowing the particular stitches, and being very meticulous in how it was stitched. I was just still drawn in while I'm stitching. It's very meditative. It's a repetitive task. And it just made me think more about their culture and about where I was. And it brought me into it. There is a spiritualness in stitching something like that, and I'm sure it is with your work. Once you start, you're into it. I mean, I'll stitch for hours and hours. And then it all has to be pulled up and tied off. And I never get tired of it, ever.
I feel compelled to weave, compelled to design, compelled to go on to the next project. And everything I do in my recent work is, well, even in my older original work, is an expression of myself in some way. And they're not well, some are, but in general it's not self-portrait, but it is, there's a piece of me in everything I do. And there's a story in everything I'm doing now. It may not be obvious to the person that looks at it, but the stories are there, and I've been saying that I'm not as facile with words as I am with images, but my images, the old saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words, speak volumes about me if you just know where to look and how to read them. I have a fascination with historical costume and textiles, and I've studied it, and also the history of how women have altered their bodies, but men did it too, and still do. We've altered our bodies to be in tune with the zeitgeist, with what's going on in our time. So if a tiny waist is the thing, then we want a tiny waist. If tiny feet are the thing, then we want tiny feet. If men padded their calves, they padded their butts. Not in our lifetimes, but then that's what people did. Perms in the 1980s and padded shoulders, and it's fascinating to me how we use our bodies to express how we see ourselves or how we want to be perceived. It's more how we want to be perceived. So if we want to be perceived as fashionable, we're going to follow the fashion. And how constricting that is. I grew up outside of New York City, so every year the fashion changed, and my mother would buy me clothes for school, and it was the mini skirts and then the maxi and the midi, and I was really into all that. But then there was also a part of me that liked something that wasn't available. I wanted something that wasn't available because it wasn't in style, and I still do that. The idea that we alter our bodies or adorn our bodies to speak to or to be read by other people. When you look at the outside and what a corset does, it's constricting the body. It speaks to all the eons of women being subjugated by men, patriarchal societies. And then you open up the inside, and there are the names of people, men and women, who have been sexually harassed, abused, raped, beginning with my name. it speaks to me, and in that vine, that it's kind of insidious, to what has been done to us. So it's sort of what we do to ourselves and what has been done to us. Every time I talk about this, new things come out, and this is new to me. How with the Me Too movement, and that's what gave me the idea to write these names, women are starting to take back control. And whenever the pendulum swings and something new happens, it can be dirty and takes time. And when I'm working on a piece, I try not to be attached to the outcome. I don't always know where I'm going. I know where I want to go, but like you said, I don't know where I'm going to wind up.
Yeah.
And this piece epitomizes that, because I had no idea. I knew I wanted to write on the inside. I had no idea what it was going to be. The Me Too movement came, and that's where I wound up. It's a really powerful piece. And sometimes when I think about it and talk about it, tears start to come to my eyes because of all the names that are in there. I mean, these are all mostly women, all people who have been harassed or raped, and it's like there's a lot of energy in that piece. And I had originally thought it could be worn, but I don't think it can be. I don't think that energy should be worn. I think it's, I don't know, there are certain things that you shouldn't wrap your body in.
It needs to be released.
Yeah.